Welcome in YouTube. Comic time. And this one's going to be a little weird because when I went to pick up my comics in early May, I was expecting no G.I. Joe because it ended, but a little bit of variety between the Turtles and Transformers. And for the second month in a row, no new Transformers. So I want to find out if this is just they stopped putting them in my bin, or if there's just been a delay for Transformers for some reason. But lots of Turtles to choose from. So today that's where we're going. We're going all Turtles, all the time. A bunch of different things. First up, issue 139 of the regular ongoing Turtles series. And in this one, the Turtles are taken by the ghost of Usagi, or Shredder. As we know, he's kind of aligned with them to become a somewhat of an uncomfortable ally. He takes them to this kind of quiet, dark place that's on another realm almost, where he introduces to them Kitsune, which I believe was Usagi's wife, and in her own right also a villain. And the Turtles were like, what the fuck, we're not working with her, fuck that shit. But he's like, no, just hear me out, you don't have to like her, you don't have to be her ally, but she has some knowledge to pass on to you. And the knowledge she's passing on, you know, they were doing those mystical cuts, the 9 cuts, the special moves that they could access with this mystical energy and help them win this upcoming Armageddon game with the Rat King. There's a 10th cut, and she wants to teach them that. So in the 10th cut has to do with like space-time, quantum dimensions, and gravity sort of thing. So it's very Donatello understands it, the rest of them don't quite. So she takes them through this cut, and along the way she has to say you have to pay attention to your past, learn from your future, blah blah blah, all this stuff. So all the Turtles go through these different things, learn the 10th cut, and at the end of it they're kind of like sitting around going, I feel like this is kind of like our last battle. Like, what are we going to do after this is all over? Like, I feel like this is the end. So they're kind of contemplating the future. And right as the issue ends, an apparition of the Rat King appears saying, oh, clever Turtles, look where you tried to hide from me, but you're not safe anywhere. Right? So he's on to them, and he thinks he's going to get them. But Rat King ain't nothing but a bitch. A bitch. Next up, this one goes back a little bit. Issue 5 of the Armageddon game. Remember, they forgot to put this one into my bin, so we're actually 1 or 2 issues beyond this at this point. But in this one, the attack on Mutant Town hadn't begun yet by the Utroms. It kind of happens at the end of this issue. So at the start of it, Krang has come back to life, and him and Shirel, the 2 Utroms that... Whoa, there goes my fucking comic. Thank you, Gravity. They're having a battle for the leadership of the Utroms, which Krang ultimately loses. So Shirel is like, okay, that idiot's dealt with, let's engage, attack. In the meantime, there's some other stuff going on. And I kind of forget what it is now, so I'm just gonna look. Oh yeah, Leonardo and Shredder, or Usagi, the spirit of him, had traveled with this group of aliens via Cuddly Cowlick to Dimension Z, where they were enlisting the aid of this team, but only if Leo and Saki helped them capture this fiend that they'd been dealing with, which they ultimately go and do. So they now have this team at their aid. And in the meantime, there's some other little things going on, like there's some stuff with Baxter Stockman and Madame Null about them getting ready for what's going to happen, as well as Raph and Hob and Sally, and those guys are all, I think Hob was in there, maybe not, but Sally are kind of preparing for what's coming as well. And then right at the end of the issue, that's when Shirel and the Utroms finally launch their invasion on Mutant Town, and the start of the fighting begins. Next up, issue 6 of the Armageddon game, The Alliance. And in this one, Karai has been recruiting people to her side, to the Foot Clan, to say she wants to do things properly, make amends, make Mutant Town great, make everybody safe, whatever. So she's got Casey Jones, April O'Neil, and then the 2 soldiers from the EPF or whatever it is, on her side. And she's saying, you know what, the fake mutant turtles is our way inside our enemy's kind of um, uh, way of thinking, and to get on somebody on the inside, right? So Karai knows where these fake mutant turtles are going to strike next, so they set up kind of an ambush, um, and take down these turtles and take them into captivity. And afterwards, Karai goes to Baxter Stockman's office and is like, "Your 4 mutant turtles, you know, we've dealt with them. They're nothing, right? Whatever." Um, and she starts kind of telling him he's a bitch, sort of thing. And she makes a move like she's gonna take him out. So he releases these, what are they called? They're basically robotic flies. You remember Baxter Stockman in the cartoon was a fly. And she's like, "Yeah, you think you got the drop on us? Check out all these ninjas I have," right? And Baxter's like, "What the fuck? How did you get ninjas in here? This is a secure facility." And so ultimately, Karai ends up winning. Baxter tries to flee. She meets him on the ground floor and says, "You're not getting away. And oh, by the way, I have all these secrets on you that if they got out, you'd be in big, big trouble." So now Karai says she doesn't want to blow the whistle on him, but he owes her a big favor. So I'm not sure where Karai is going with this, because, you know, when she was recruiting all these allies and she was talking about how noble she was going to be and she's going to make things right, and now she's kind of playing Baxter Stockman almost like, not a partnership, but, you know, she's trying to get a favor from him somehow through all this. But why? Like, what's her real intentions here? So I'm kind of on the fence about Karai's true intent on this whole thing, right? Next up, issue 3 of The Last Ronin, The Lost Years. In this one, it starts off present day with the new little batch of turtles that April and her daughter Casey are looking after. And they're having more arguments. Like, every time we see these guys, April and Casey are kind of teaching them a lesson, right? So this lesson is how it's always the right thing to do is always the right thing to do in helping your brothers and your comrades and your allies and your friends. And she relates that back to a story about the turtles when they were supposed to go on some mission, but they chose to help April and Casey instead, do something else. And helped their friends and helped solve a problem. So that's kind of how that is. And then we get into Michelangelo's story, where he last left off. He was fleeing after that bar fight or whatever to Mongolia, but he ended up getting in a car crash, and he lost his sight after the car crash, and he ended up getting captured by, you don't know, he can't see them. So they end up taking him. He thinks he's in trouble. They end up taking him to it's a Mongolian tribe of some sort, and they take him to their camp, where Michelangelo is presented before their leader, this wizened old man, and I forget what his name was or his title was. And he talks to Michelangelo about his loss of sight and his plight and everything. And this guy kind of takes Michelangelo under his wings and teaches Michelangelo how to see without seeing. And he matches him up with one of the guys that captured him as kind of a weapons trainer guy, to help him fight, although he can't see. And he has this little girl that's kind of serves as his aide for what he needs. Her name is Jarell or something like that, and he gains a real fondness for her, and she teaches him in her own kind of youthful way, right? And in the end, he grows really fond of these people. He learns a lot. He's grown a lot. He's really competent now. He's confident, and even though he's lost his sight, he's a dangerous turtle. But in the end, the camp gets attacked, and he sees Jarell and a bunch of other people die kind of right in front of him as they get all shot up. And that's the last thing we see, is Michelangelo kind of go down and get captured in this attack from whoever it is, probably Deathworm's people, right? Because that's who he's kind of after. next up and last up, some new Turtles spin-offs. Issue number 1 and issue number 2 of the Usagi Yojimbo spin-off. Usagi Yojimbo was a character from the original Turtles cartoon, and I'm assuming he was in the Archie comics. I'm pretty sure he was. He's like a samurai mutant rabbit. I can't remember. I think he's from the past, and he somehow ends up with the Turtles in the present time, or maybe they go back to visit him in the past somehow. I can't remember, but he's like a samurai mutant rabbit that ends up becoming an ally of the Turtles. And in these first 2 issues, it starts off with Usagi Yojimbo in his own time, and his leader, Lord Noruyobi, something like that. I can't remember exactly. They're kind of their war company is on a march somewhere, and they end up making camp somewhere where a couple of the local villagers approach and they say, "Oh, there's this kappa in the river that keeps terrorizing us." And a kappa is like kind of a freak mutant turtle that's evil, right? So Usagi Yojimbo goes to his leader and says, "Oh, can we help them with this?" And he's like, we can't spare any people for this." And then, but Usagi keeps at it. And he's like, "Well, can you just let like me go and I'll try and help them?" And the guy's like, "Okay, whatever." So he ends up actually letting a few of them go. So they go help these villagers with this kappa, who I think they end up beheading him. So this freak mutant turtle is dead. The story then shifts to present day, where the turtles are after this robotic mad scientist called Dr. Werewen, and they're trying to foil whatever evil plot he's got up his sleeve. But before they can capture him, he actually escapes in this chamber to the past. So Donatello's like, "Well, if we get in there and do this, we can probably follow him." So they do that, and they actually end up in Usagi Yojimbo's time frame. So, but them being mutant turtles, Usagi Yojimbo and 2 of his friends are off doing the one thing, and a couple of his other friends are off on their own doing another thing, and that's where the turtles arrive. And these 2 are like, kappas! There's 4 kappas, right? So they go after the turtles and attack them and stuff like that. But soon enough, Usagi and his other friends arrive on the scene, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Hold up! These guys are okay. They're not kappa. They're actually really cool." And he's like, "Mike, Raph, all the guys, kind of what's up, So then the turtles explain to Usagi what's going on with this Dr. Werewen and his evil plans, and kind of they kind of ask Usagi, for help in tracking him down and bringing this guy to justice. And Usagi's like, "Well, we can ask our leader, but that's all we can do." So they go back to camp, and the High Lord Noruyobi, whatever his name is, says, "No, we can't afford to send people out on this with the turtles, but we can offer supplies. We can at least do that." So in the end, that's kind of how things end up. So the turtles end up having like this feast with Usagi and all of his comrades before they're set to go off and search for Dr. Werewen. But before they can do that, all of a sudden the ground starts trembling and shaking. It's like an earthquake. And then all these mole creatures come up from below, which we hadn't seen up to this point in the story. They're kind of new. So, and they start attacking the war company and the villagers all around them, and that's kind of how the second issue ends off. So that's the arc of the first 2 issues. So it was cool to see Usagi Yojimbo back in the mix, because I did enjoy his character as a kid, and I do have his original Playmates toy around here somewhere. And yeah, I just love me my Ninja Turtles and rabbits and snakes and geckos, Mondo Gecko. Anyways, enough of my rambling. Have a good one. Meow.